Good morning. Good morning. GM, everyone. Welcome to another episode of FOMO Hour. I don't even know what episode it is. I've lost track. We've done so many. We got to get our tracker back on top of the screen. Folks, today is Thursday, October 17th, 2024. It is another cooler sunny morning here in Chicago today, folks. We are in the 30s again, but back into the 60s and 70s later this week, heating up by the weekend. Our memes heating up into the weekend. Starting to see signs that a weekend run might be starting here today, folks. We're going to break that down, plus all the news on today's show. Farouk is busy out interviewing folks and gallivanting around Paris. Mando is traveling today. He's not going to be able to join us, but we've got Logan Hitchcock on, our editor-in-chief over at Lucky Trader, holding down the fort. Logan, GM, how you doing?
Hey, good morning, Tyler. I'm doing well. Yeah, excited to chat all things market.
Glad to have you on board. Another busy day in Web3. Folks, we are going to keep today's show a bit tighter, 40-minute show. A very concise update on everything happening in the market. So what are we talking about? Topics on today's list. We're going to talk Bitcoin falling a bit despite massive ETF inflows. A16Z, they published their state of crypto, calling 2024 the biggest year yet. We'll go through their report. Vitalik continued his blog, outlining the future of Ethereum. We've got some breaking news out of Jupiter. They launched Ape Jupiter this morning as they lean deeper into Memecoins. We've got this GOAT token, Logan, euphoric last night as it goes on a meteoric run. A few other old meme coins running it back. We've got big action on the Runes board. A huge day of digital art drops. I think 4 or 5 marquee artists doing drops yesterday. And then we'll end the show with our weekly Arbitrum update here as well. Before we dive in, shout out to our partner, Galaxis. With seamless built-in monetization tools, Galaxis enables the development of sustainable long-term communities, fulfilling Bitcoin's vision of decentralized freedom and independence from centralized control. Shout out to Galaxis. As always, we love having them as our partner. With that, Logie, are you ready for us to start getting into some market chat?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, I'm going to pull up the screen share here. 1 second. I'll do my best Mando impression and try to go around the horn here for a quick macro update. So Bitcoin crypto majors down about 1 to 2%. We've got Bitcoin here at 66,800. ETH down 1%, 2590. Solana down 2% at 151. Solana continues to lag Bitcoin in this recent week of action. Though, if you look at the week, it's up about it's up in line, pretty much in step with Bitcoin. As for top movers on the day, it was pretty quiet. Really, not a whole lot of big movers in the top 100 crypto tokens. FTT, the FTX token, actually was the number one alt mover, and then Popcat starting to make a little bit of a run. We'll come back to that later. I think that might be a sign of what's going to happen here this weekend. I thought it was a little strange that Bitcoin was down, given these ETF inflows. Folks, I don't know if you've been following these ETF inflows. They are massive this week. We are talking about $1.6 billion in ETF inflows in the past 4 business days. So pending how today goes, we might be looking at a $2 billion week. IBIT leading the way pretty much as always here with the ETF flows. Perhaps a reason why we're seeing Bitcoin dip, like the dollar appears to grind up. So some dollar strength here, showing the DXY index. It's basically been up only since October started. So that could perhaps be leading to some of the sell pressure. I think stocks read this morning as well. As for macro news, not a whole lot on the board. I saw the ECB cut interest rates by 0.25%, 25 bips. So perhaps a sign of what is to come for the upcoming the next FOMC meeting happening in November. So that's something somewhat notable. As for the meme leaderboard, and we'll do a deeper meme update perhaps later in the show, it was pretty much red across the board. I was actually looking through the meme leaders across Solana, ETH, Base. They're pretty much universally red here this morning. Doge giving back some gains after yesterday, with down, Pepe down 4%, Popcat again the primary outperformer along with Mog. So perhaps some signs of life there in the Murad list. Logie, we typically talk more Web3 headlines with you, perhaps a little bit more NFTs, Web3 gaming type headlines. But, without Mando here, it's just us running the show. I'm curious, what's your take? We haven't really had a chance to hear from you. Mando has shared his outlook, basically feels like Bitcoin probably grinds up to close to previous all-time highs into the election, 70K range. And then perhaps, springboards from there into Q4. Curious for your macro read, like how are you thinking about Bitcoin here in Q4 2024?
Yeah, I mean, a boring response. I don't have any crazy opinions about what happens with Bitcoin, but I still do feel like I'm in line in terms of thinking, in line with a lot of what the market is feeling and thinking. Still some uncertainty, though. Of course, the market's starting to perhaps price in more of a likelihood or a probability of a Trump election win. But still, some uncertainty leading into that, and then perhaps some of the euphoria that comes out at the other end. I was actually just looking at some of the Polymarket boards as well. Still like a 69% chance, or sorry, 69% probability, according to the market, that is, that Bitcoin sees a new all-time high in 2024. So I think I'm right there alongside that. I think that feels like a pretty good number with just over 2 months left in the year. I'm ready for all-time high.
Do you have a Bitcoin price target for this cycle? Let's assume that a bull cycle plays out along the lines of the 4-year kind of historical pattern we've seen. Do you have a number in mind?
I mean, 100,000 just feels so psychologically important, right? It's just like that. That's the number that's been said for such a long time. And now, of course, there's so many other targets, the 250,000s, the astronomical targets set by Saylor and others. But I feel like 100,000 get me there, and let's see what happens and see if we can broach that psychologically, and then maybe off to the races.
A little conservative, so I'm a little out past you there. So I think 100K generally is still my target for the end of this year. I think it's doable. Kind of probably does depend a bit on the results of the election there. I think 150K is my target for Bitcoin. So I'm still pretty bullish on where this goes. That's the power law number from the Kruger school thought is 150K.
There's $1 million in volume on a market at Polymarket. Will Bitcoin hit 250K in 2024? $1 million in volume, 3%, yes. So for those who want to extend out a bit further, you want to take a lottery ticket, there's things like that available.
In 2025 or 2024?
2024.
Yeah,
so
okay.
two and a half months to like 4x.
Yeah, that feels
a little wild, but
yeah. So maybe some free money on the no. Besides Bitcoin, I'm still a Solana bull. Solana kind of secretly, quietly is trading at market cap all-time highs. Ovi always reminds us that in the group chat because of all the unlocks, and there's a lot of unlocks coming in Q1. But it really does feel like Solana is the L1 of this cycle. I think Sui probably is next man up there. And then Tau is really interesting in the AI space. And we'll talk about some of those trends. Actually, that's a good seg to this A16Z state of crypto report. If folks do care about this industry, I do encourage you all just to go through and read this. It's a pretty interesting read. There's their summary of 2024, which they're calling the biggest year in crypto yet. And they outlined their 7 key takeaways, which are all data driven. And they've got some nice visuals and graphics here backing up all of these. Here, let me see. I'll try to go through them. So at a high level, their number one is that activity is at all-time high. And they point to wallet addresses. I actually think this is a little bit murky just with all the bots and AI agents entering crypto. So I think we need to take that with a grain of salt. But hard to deny the growth here. And they're comparing it to the growth of the internet. and showing how it's actually in line, if not slightly ahead. So that's their starter takeaway. They go on to talk about politics and how crypto has become a key political issue ahead of the U.S. election and how much it's grown in some key swing states. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone, but taking a look back on this year from the outside, that certainly is a really important theme, and perhaps one that we didn't see coming: the increased politicalization of crypto. Stablecoins. I mean, stablecoins is a boring topic, but it really does feel like perhaps the biggest takeaway of the year is the increasing globalization, the increasing rise in usage, adoption everywhere. More and more big players are getting into this game, and it feels like stablecoins have certainly found a massive product market fit here in crypto. A few others, kind of just going through the rest of the list: infrastructure improvements. I think that's kind of par for the course with as much focus on infrastructure as we have. I think it'd be more surprising if we're not having yearly growth there. DeFi remaining popular. I think for folks who are in the crypto streets, being able to do things with it, earn yield, lend against it, that's never going to go away. So I think DeFi, a core pillar of crypto at this point. AI is an interesting new one on their list. Crypto could solve some of AI's most pressing challenges. They're talking a bit about the intersection here, and perhaps we'll get into that. And then more scalable infra as they look to create more on-chain applications. This gets a little bit more into that consumer crypto buzzword that so many of us have been talking about. So that's a quick rundown of this. We'll go into more detail, but Logan, curious for any reactions you have, or perhaps part two of that question. Which of these 7 takeaways do you feel like is the most important?
Yeah, a few high level from my perspective. The activity and usage at all-time highs. Of course, the number one takeaway here, just seeing that alongside the internet growth, of which I wasn't, paying attention. Of course, I was a very small child, wasn't paying attention to the growth of the internet and wasn't around to understand that. So it's difficult for me to fathom that this industry that we're participating in every single day is actually growing as fast as it is. And then secondly, you mentioned some murkiness, right, in the numbers, and A16Z does a great job of explaining exactly that there is some conflict in how they come and arrive to this number, but they do break it down. There's actually a separate article that breaks down the address growth and stuff. But 220 million, even when you get down to the 30 to 60 million, which they believe are real people making those monthly transactions, that just seems wild to me, right? Like that seemed high. And I hope it's as accurate as it could possibly be, right? With all those caveats in there, but that gives me some cautious optimism, about how many people are actually interacting here, how big this market actually is, even though from time to time, or maybe every day, right, it feels so small. Like this is a much bigger deal than we actually think it is. So I think those were some of the takeaways for me that just kind of, reaffirm why we're here, why we're making the bets that we're making, make you feel a little bit better, some confirmation bias, if you will.
I'm reminded a lot of how small our crypto Twitter bubble is compared to all of crypto. I think conferences are always a good reminder of that, like Bitcoin Nashville, boots on the ground there. I'd say just finger in the air swag estimate, less than 5% of those folks are probably like showing up and interacting in what we consider crypto Twitter on a daily basis, let alone all the folks who are employed in this industry. So I would agree with you there. I guess, Logan, any worrisome takeaways or any perhaps negative takes on any of these 7?
Yeah, interesting. I read this with such a hopium that I probably didn't have any immediate worrisome stuff. I guess one of the things, particularly for us, is if you scroll down into, of course, the political stuff, but if you scroll down into like the builder activity and the types of categories that people are building in, we saw a decline in some of the NFT infrastructure. I mean, that's where I grew up in this ecosystem, right? I kind of came through the NFT stuff. And that 4.4% actually, I think, is a decrease year over year. So some of those things, I don't necessarily want to say worrisome in the sense that I'm concerned about the future of NFTs. You see 8.5% of builder activity last year, 4.4% this year. But that is something that, a technology and an interest for myself and perhaps many of those watching this show, that you're seeing a little bit less builder activity and interest and innovation in. So that's something that's a little worrisome, not necessarily for the full state of crypto, but just for, my particular interest and perhaps the interests of the demographic that's consuming this type of content. But otherwise, Tyler, yeah, I read this with a lot of hopium. The political stuff is always there as a worrisome thing, just because the more that it is in focus, I think we're expecting and hoping for more clarity and just more regulatory frameworks so that it can continue to exist and thrive and grow. But of course, there's always that, like, in the back of your head, that regulatory stuff could also hinder growth. And there's some demographic data in here as well that showcases that the United States is such a massive player here that, you need that regulatory stuff to be at least neutral, for growth.
I'm with you there. And thank you you pointed out this builder dashboard. I actually had missed this. So folks, I definitely encourage you to check this out. There's some really cool visuals here in this builderenergy.a16crypto.com. As for the political takeaway was my more worrisome, but I've shared my thoughts on that. We don't need to repeat it. I want to talk about a few takeaways from this dashboard because this thing is
this is awesome.
Sweet. So starting with builder interest by blockchain, I think what jumps out to me here is just the Ethereum dominance. So it's ETH, and then ETH L2s are what, 80% of what builders are focused on right now. With Solana at 11 and then Bitcoin at 4. One thing that does jump out about Solana, if you talk about the years, Solana was just 5% last year. So it has more than doubled in builder interest on the year, which is notable. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that circle grow into next year. I will say what people are building was perhaps a little disappointing. I guess not a surprise though, right?
Yeah.
So DeFi a quarter, 25%, infra at 19%, but actually infra, picks and shovels, wallets gets you closer to 40%. NFTs are down. DePIN at 6%. What was DePIN last year? That's got to be up quite a bit, right? So it's up about 6%. Any takeaways from you on the category? I know you kind of went into this within it.
So category stuff. I had the same sort of takeaway, Tyler. As somebody who's using some more of the consumer focused stuff, the NFT type stuff, that is a little not concerning, but it's just, I want to see more builder activity in some of those more socially focused, consumer focused things. And perhaps that's next year's, right? You have things like Abstract and many others that are really, really trying to focus on consumers and actual use cases beyond the hyper financialized stuff. So that was one thing. The above, though, the blockchain stuff, the builder energy, of course, this is being built. This data is A16Z indicates this is proprietary data, right? They're using their connections to the space, their investment in the space to drive this information. And of course, we know they're leading all the biggest raises. Who better to show us where the future is going to be, at least built in the near term? And so this was awesome to me to see Solana's growth. Of course, that corresponds to our activity every single day on the chain, right? Like that is where things are happening most, or at least that's where it feels things are happening most. So no shock to see it there. But I think this might be, if you're someone out there who's looking to participate in different ways, you think there's a massive bull that's going to extend beyond chains into a really robust, just macro crypto bull run. Take a look at some of these that are getting in that 4, 5, 6%. They may be your 10, 12% next year. Yeah, AVAX was one that was off the top of my head. It was like, okay, we've talked about them. Arbitrum, of course, Base, like those types of things that have grown year over year. They may be the winners next year. And you could, maybe not have the same multiple of, hey, if you were at the $8 Solana into the 150, 60, whatever dollar Solana, but maybe you're in the ground floor of an ecosystem that's about to double or triple over the next year. And there's some probably real opportunity in those. So that was really exciting to me to see this. This is really, really cool data and information to be able to just play with. I'm with you. I was surprised not to see Sui on this map. So we're curious if Sui will be on there as like the next man up. My last takeaway, they have a nice geographical map here. So 40% of builders are in the US.
So there's a lot of rhetoric out there, saying how hard it is for builders in the US. I mean, clearly it's still a substantial component. So good data. Go check this out if you haven't already. That's going to sum up our macro update. Let's go down the risk curve a little bit. Let's start talking memes. So I think the breaking news here this morning is Jupiter has officially introduced Ape Jupiter as its meme coin terminal. I think it's ape.pro is the address, real-time streaming of new tokens, advanced data and charts, optimized MEV protection. It looks like, I mean, Jupiter is going to be the whole universe, one-stop shop, right? You're not going to even need to use that many of the other apps. You're going to be able to do everything in Jupiter. They have the new mobile app. We showed the integration where you can just kind of click their logo now on different sites and start to trade right in there. So clearly they're leaning in. So shout out to Jupiter. I'm excited to try to test this out. Didn't have really a chance before the show. As for the Memecoin board, I guess we can start with GOAT. It is the biggest story in memes. Last night, before I was getting ready for bed, this thing hit 360 million. I'm seeing 375 million at peak. Did you chip any off there, Logie, or are you holding for moon?
I should have probably chipped some off. I did not. No, I was watching some playoff baseball last night. The WNBA game was excellent as well last night. But yeah, I'm feeling, I mentioned on the show yesterday, I sold about half my bag at around 125 million, which of course looks very silly now. And this last bit, I'm kind of bought into this narrative. So I'm okay with holding. I said, a billion Billy Goat, right? That type of thing feels, I don't want to say programmed. Nothing's financial advice here, of course, but that's the kind of the target that I've got in the back of my head right now. So I did not chip any off last night.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, all the dips on this thing are just getting eaten so fast.
It's wild. Yeah. I mean, it got down to 200 at some point yesterday, maybe a little bit below. And then, in 15, 20 minutes, you look back up and it's 275, 285, 300.
These candles are absurd.
Yeah.
And then Arkham Intel picked it up yesterday, even though they didn't really have their facts straight. People have been flooding it. It doesn't really seem to matter. I think that this thing is bigger than the FUD at this point. We'll see. Now it's basically gotten to where Mudang got at peak. We'll see if it's able to get past 400. I think that's going to be a key level. We saw some other runners. So Wyack, out of nowhere, arguably the biggest winner of the day, up 270%. I haven't personally dug into this. I have a buddy who's been tracking this closely. It looks like a couple wallets, perhaps even the same person, shoved 1.5 million into this thing. So they are a big driver of this absurd candle that you see here on the day. So we might need to learn a little bit more about their intentions. This should be at all-time high. I think I got close to this. Yeah. Back when we had the woman on the show, that was back in summertime, early summer, right around when it peaked. And then of course, several memes had the same chart. It started to rally up back to 510. And I had some friends get back in. I never got back in on this, much to my chagrin. So this thing is, wow, this thing, how high did it wick? Oh my goodness. I didn't even see the wick.
I never owned this one.
It wicked to 60. Wow. So quite the wick to fill there for Wyack. Shout out to those who held through the downturn. Going across the rest of the board, we'll take a look at the Murad board. It looks like it's starting to flip green here. So we love to see that almost universally green. My one of my core thesis is that the Murad list might trade like the old Art Blocks curated, where we see the pullbacks Monday to Wednesday, run into the weekend, Thursday to Sunday. Perhaps we are starting to see that. It's going to depend on PopCat, and I think it's largely going to depend on some of the meme majors as well. Like, I think we need WIF to run for PopCat to really move up to 1.5. If PopCat goes to 1.5, I think we see some big movements across the board.
Did you catch the Rasmer investigation research thing yesterday? Did you catch that?
The boots on the ground, polling everyone with the
293 people or something. I didn't watch the entire video. I saw that Mudang was like the winner. But I saw some of the takeaways that he had shared afterwards. And again, full disclosure, I did not watch the video, so I can't be certain he wasn't trolling or something. But I saw some mention of USA coin. being highlighted a couple times by. That's one that I can totally understand. It falls right into that like Zin level category for me, where like I understand the potential. The word cult's being used a lot here recently. I understand the potential cultishness behind, that's probably not a word, behind like a USA coin. That one makes a lot of sense to me. I, again, never owned it. I do own some Zin. But I get that one. Some of these other ones on the list, I mean, it's just, I'm not fudding Murad at all. I loved his performance on the show last week. He seems like a crazy evil genius. Not evil, but, crazy genius.
Hopefully not evil.
Yeah, hopefully not evil. But yeah, that's the one of this list, which I actually don't own any of at this point in time, which feels very silly, right? To not own any of.
You need
the America
to get
one
to the list, Logie. Rotate some.
I've loved Mog.
Super hot. Get something on the list.
I've loved Mog for a long time. We talked about it around 250 million, maybe even before, and I mentioned that would be the one that I would buy, and I just never bought it. I had a PopCap bag that I eventually sold off.
Same
for a nice
mini such tales.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling out USA. It is one of my larger bags. I have to disclose that.
Oh, okay.
My thesis is that all the polyfi, all the single political coins are going to go away, but USA people,
I think
here still love USA, and it's on the Murad list. It was the lowest. I think my hot take is it's not gonna remain the lowest by market.
A Trump victory, which it seems increasingly likely, feels like such a great catalyst for a USA coin, right? I know, of course, there's the MAGA stuff, but like everybody, MAGA has like people don't like that. Some people don't like that. Like half the country doesn't really like that. The country likes USA. You can get behind USA. You imagine if we have a New York World Series. I mean, there's so many things coming up USA.
Here. There really are. Great reference there. A couple other things. USA is still far off all-time highs from the big polyfi rage, and then unit bias. A lot of the hot coins are now close to like 10 cents or at $1, like PopCat. This is one where you can pick up, 1 billion tokens and then just what if it goes to $1 type thing, which you can't with a whole lot of other coins on the list. So enough of my bag pumping here. Circle was another one. Kind of came out of nowhere. I thought Circle was dead. I think you picked this up at $1 million. It went back to 15 or so. So it's still alive. Any reason why this thing is pumping?
I couldn't tell you why it's pumping. I had been seeing it on my timeline for I don't know why, but it just like kept showing up, and then I probably like interacted with a post or something, and then I just kept getting fed more Circle stuff. I think upon the Beeple every day that ran to like 13 or 14 million maybe overnight. And when I refreshed and looked at it for the first time, I didn't purchase on the initial run up. It was at like 1 million. It retraced nearly all the way. Yeah, and I don't know why, Tyler. I just kept seeing it, and I was like, 1 million. I'm gonna take a small bet here.
Perhaps the influx of art on Shape, and we'll come back to that here in a second. But Shape has still had a flurry of activity. So shout out to Circle holders. Nice little comeback for you. Some action on the Runes board as well. I got to quickly hit this. So $1 billion cat was the top story yesterday. It hit 100 million in a new all-time high. It's hanging out at 92 right now. Red Cat Romeo was a big mover. Apparently that is the cat of a Magic Eden founder. So any pet tied to any founder is going to have some kind of a pump. So that was moving last night. 10 Bitcoin volume. I mean, nothing to sneeze at. And then Puka was the big mover last night. This thing had 600 pending transactions at one point. 25 Bitcoin in volume. So clearly the number one mover. It's up to the $3 million market cap. I've seen mixed stories. So I think this is tied to OMB, perhaps ZK's dog, another weird pet tie-in. I think it was a gas war to mint this. So as I understand it, people who are minting this Runes were minting it at close to a $2 or $3 million market cap. At least some of them were. So this is going to be perhaps a new one to watch. Gizmo at 16 million. I think the wild card for Gizmo is that Ordinals mint later today. So we will see how that potentially impacts the Runes. Interestingly, so RSIC grinding up a bit, dog hanging out at 550 million. So it's really up there. Pups has had a rough week here. down 10% at 130. So we will see if and when that starts to turn around. Well, we talked about what might be pumping Circle, and it was a big day in art across the board. So switching over to NFTs and digital art, 4 or 5 major artists had dropped yesterday. So Grimplin did this ticker treat drop on base, did 50,000 mints on this thing. So quite a lot of demand, though. It was pretty much free, 0.000666 ETH. We also saw OX Death Beef. He had to shut down his movable type mint. Over 100,000 of these were minted on Shape. So perhaps this was what drove some of the action over on Shape. We had Art Blocks Curated back with their first new digital drop from MP Cause, Boca, where you could get these lamps, sculptures, lighting, digital works, and they come along with the digital NFT as well. This was just the first 20. There will be a 300-piece sale on the 21st. So I think that is Monday. And then rounding this out, we saw Die with the most likes sell his notable pet-based card at 0.069 ETH in a gas war, and that immediately ran to 0.469. Logan, curious to any reactions on your side on the art drops? What was your favorite or surprise of the day?
Favorite. I love Death Beef, the work that he does, the innovation. So that's a really cool one. I actually did not participate. I don't really know why I didn't participate, but I think that was a really cool one. Lots of innovation in the work that he does. But Gremplin, it's tough not to love Gremplin in the style that Gremplin does. Those are really, really great. Shout out Toads, a relic at this point. So cool. To see Gremplin back in the streets. It's just a good positive day of art. So that's awesome to see.
Quickly, there's been a lot of talk about meme NFTs and cults. Do you feel like Cryptodes are still a cult meme NFT? Do you feel like they are perhaps going to catch some love in this rally?
I don't know. Sleeping potential giant. I think this is you always show that the little roller coaster, bigger loop, smaller loop, smaller loop. I think the loop potential is smaller for Toads than it once was. But there's still something in there. Yeah, there's still something in there.
Sad. Shout out to Grimplin. Perhaps he will kickstart a Toads run later today just to prove Logan wrong. That's going to be a quick roundup of the market. We kept it tight today, like I promised, but we need to get into Arbitrum, though. Arbitrum, folks, once again, has been cooking. Just to start at a high level, AJ Warner here shared their new partnerships from 2024. Robinhood, Paxos, Franklin Templeton, and then in games, Ubisoft, ApeCoin, Azuki, Senko. This is about as big as it gets, right? I mean, there's some major names. They've launched nearly 100 Orbit chains. We also saw the Arbitrum Orbit roadmap here, everything that they are focused on, from customability, decentralization, DevX, native interop, and performance. So clearly, Orbit laying the groundwork for so many chains, so many builders, and they continue to iterate on their product. And then they've got some action on the DGen side. So their Memecoin platform, GU Trade, that's getting close, 95% of the way there. And then noteworthy this week is ApeFest is coming. And Ape Chain is powered by Arbitrum Orbit. I know they're going to have a mint with their BMW M driver's licenses. Plus, I'm sure there's a lot of surprises in store for Ape Fest this weekend. Logie, I know you dug into this a bit. Kind of what jumped out to you? What were some of your takeaways from what Arbitrum's got going here this week?
Yeah, so the Ape Fest stuff is awesome. I think Ape Chain is a sleeping giant. You have the banana bill. Like there's a lot. I'm excited to see what types of apps and just consumer opportunities exist. So really excited for this. Also, too, though, the Orbit chains. To segue back to the state of crypto, you may have noticed that if you dig a little bit deeper, there's mention of proof of play and just the growth and infrastructure scaling of Arbitrum Orbit. Proof of play is like the top 3 of 4 in terms of what's listed on that state of crypto from A16Z. So just incredible growth, incredible new innovation and scaling for some of these massive games. So shout out Proof of Play and Arbitrum leading the way there. It'll be really cool to see what other things come as a result of that innovation, now that you can actually get so many people playing these games without the scaling issues that had previously existed.
Yeah. No, they continue to power so much of the ecosystem. I mean, if we take a look back at Arbitrum, I mean, it's 6% of the builders, and that doesn't even factor in all the orbit chains. So clearly a significant part.
Four of the top 5, I just pulled it up on the second screen here. 4 of the top 5 are Arbitrum settlements for the gaming and the TPS, the M gas per second. So leading the way in terms of scaling and opportunity for growth there.
In Robinhood, this Robinhood app is going to be one to watch. I think a headline that we saw yesterday was future trading on Bitcoin, Bitcoin futures. So similar to like your options type trading. I think that's going to be an interesting one. We saw Paxos and their stable coin, and Franklin Templeton, of course, doing so much. And then Ubisoft launching several Web3 games. It seems like they've got in the cooker. So a lot more to come. It's already been a big year, but a lot to look forward to, certainly with them. All right, folks, I think that is going to be it. We promised you 35 to 40 minutes, a tight show. We delivered it once again. I want to shout out to our listeners for tuning in to today's FOMO Hour. That will be it. We will be back tomorrow breaking down all of today's action. Maybe a special guest tomorrow. We'll see. We're working on it. Plus 2 Rollbit spins for our Friday show. As for today, go have a great Thursday. Go make it a beautiful day. Goodbye.